I wasn't here last week, and gosh, it felt as if I was away for 10 years. But it's so good. It's such a delight to be here again on the program Flipside. So I welcome myself and I welcome all of my viewers out there. Today we're going to talk about something that is trending right now. Look around you all over Benin City, even outside of Benin. You notice that you have a lot of runoffs, a lot of water issues, flooding here and there. But we're not just talking about flooding in the whole of Nigeria. We're not talking about villages today. We're talking about our urban areas. And so our topic for today is urbanization and flooding, or effects of urbanization to flooding. I have two qualified guests in the house to talk about this. You know why, but you know the drill. We'll go on a break. When we come back, you meet my guests and then we get talking on what we have for you on Flipside. So don't you know, keep your dials locked. All right, it's good to know you're still there with us. Some very positive words for you to help you through the week, and happiness. We could do with a little happiness right now at this time where there's so much crisis. So that's why that positive nugget was there for you. And you can actually try out the chewing gum and cutting onions if it works. It worked for me, but I don't know if it's going to work for you. But anyway, back to what we're talking about today, effects of urbanization to flooding. I did say before the break that I had two guests in the house who were talking about this topic with me, so you're just going to meet them right now. I have seated close to me Eyi Gariwa. You might have met him or you heard him talk on politics. Oh God, he talks a lot about politics. But he's not here on the political grounds today. He's an architect by profession, so if you do not know before, now you know. So I have architect Eyi Gariwa in the house to talk about this environmental matter. Welcome.
Thank you, viewers, and good afternoon. I'm actually a builder, not an architect.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
And I also have, I also made the mistake of calling him the surveyor, an environmental analyst. I have Iwe Ogene Usalmesi.
Thank you for having me, Daisy.
Okay, good to have the both of you here in the house to talk about this. All right, now, in recent time, there seems to be a lot of flood matters coming up more and more, and it seems more prevalent in urban areas. So I would want to start with you. Why do you think that is, that in urban regions we're experiencing more flood as the year progresses?
Well, firstly, you have to look at the change in the climatic condition of the world now as a result of the depletion of the ozone layer And we are worst for it in terms of the effect of flooding on our people, because there is what is basically a very salient ingredient in terms of building architecture, in terms of housing in communities, in other more civilized climes. We found ourselves in a very, very tight situation, because over the years, or from inception, we've not had what you call town planning. We've not had town planning, and as a result, people have built almost haphazardly. They've built as they wished. And right now you have a lot of challenges, and again, the indiscipline on the part of our rural dwellers in terms of that's innate or instinctive capacity to just litter virtually anywhere. If you go to the average drains now that haven't been desilted, basically more than the sand that comes, because we also have, in terms of our road architecture in this part of the world, we have a situation where you make roads, but the distance between the road and the next building is, you have your soil is there. And most of this soil are going to end up back in the drains that you have created, because in other climes, it's from road to building. Everything is sorted out. You don't leave no space for the sand to come back. So yearly you have to desilt, and this costs a lot of money, which they actually don't do in other places. When you cover an area, you do it very neatly. But here, maybe because of lack of funds, or because of the way we've been where we've been coming from. But if you go to a place like Airport Road in Benin, it's going to be very difficult to have flooding there. It's going to be very difficult to have blocked drains there, because most of the soil were all covered from after the drains. They were all covered to the buildings. So everywhere is sorted all around there, and it looks so beautiful. But maybe for paucity of funds, but largely what has been responsible for flooding in Benin, environmental factors, indiscipline in terms of the way we do our refuse disposal, and the kind of roads that we build here that don't that don't envisage that the soil that has been left uncovered will be washed back into the drains.
Okay. I don't know if you saw a report recently we had on television where there was a baby, a 6-year-old girl, who fell into one of the open drains because of the rain. So the drain was covered, and there was no way for the mother of the girl to know that there was a drain open there. So the baby fell in, and eventually researched. This is not United States, so we didn't find the body. So how do you feel about these open drains? It has always been. I grew up having gutters in front of my house that were open. Then you finally have a slab where the cars can get into the compounds for up. So I think this open drain thing has always been. But how do you feel about that still in this 21st century?
Thank you. I think it's pathetic to know that in this century we still have urban centers where you have the situation where drainages are not covered. But before I make more progress on that, I would like you to know that urbanization itself does not really mean that the city is exploding. Urbanization is, the flooding is the price man is paying for urbanization, unplanned environment per se. When slums are present in a given geographical space, when cities are not planned, there tends to be something like this. But however, urbanization is not a phenomenon that just started today or yesterday. Urbanization has taken place for centuries ago. Cities like Zaria, Maduguri, and the great city of Benin has experienced urbanization over time. Now, urbanization itself is simply defined as increasing proportion of population into the urban area. People tend to move from the rural area to the urban area. This brings about urbanization. But going back to your question, you see, the policymakers, they are not helping in this whole issue. Like you construct a road, and at the end there is not covered. I think it's really, really absurd to see that in Benin City, conspicuous places like that, you see that drainages are not covered. I think it's not right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, now, why do we experience, okay, I'm still on you now.
Okay.
Can you tell us what flash flooding, and why is it that we seem to be experiencing more of it in Benin City at present?
Okay. If you follow the antecedent of what I said earlier, urbanization boils down on population. When population of a given geographical space, let's say Benin, then you see that when people move to a given geographical space, urbanization is set to set in. And another point I would like to make is here is that urbanization, another factor that contributes to urbanization is what? Natural increase. You understand? So if we are to go by that, people tend to move from the from the rural area to the urban area. As such, one of the basic needs of man need to be met, which is housing. The UN said one of the basic needs of man is housing. Even the Bible is written in the book of Genesis that one of the basic needs of man is housing. So when those people move in, so they must make provision for what? Housing. Investors, on the other hand, we see it as an opportunity to invest in the housing sector. So by doing so, the natural environment will be transformed toward artificial. So areas that were covered by woodlands, areas that were covered by vegetation are being removed. In the course of that, construction has taken place. So once construction takes place, what you see is that you see roof. So once it rains, you see that flood tends to take place. And again, flash flood is referred to as a sudden flood. That is, when it rains suddenly, you tend to see flood. And you might have experienced this, that you see flood in a given environment, but it didn't rain in that particular area. The environment itself is like a human body. It is what you give in that you must that you see at. That's why in computer language they will say garbage in and garbage out. But the key point is this. The key point is this. When areas are unplanned, there tends to be what? Flooding. That does not mean that flooding does not happen in rural or take place in rural settlement. Flooding does take place in rural settlement. But however, a given geographical space where there are 500 persons, you cannot compare it where you are having a large number of persons.
Awesome.
So that is it.
Okay. All right. I know we still want to talk some more, but we'll go on a quick break on the show. When we come back, we'll get back into this urbanization and flooding matter. So just stay tuned. Welcome back. The program is still Flipside. If you just joined us, you missed a lot, but I'm sure you still have enough to catch up on. So just stay tuned and enjoy. We're talking about effects of urbanization to flooding. I have a builder and I have an environmental analyst in the house. Eira is the builder, and I will get it. Yes. Usawa say because he said I should say the right way. No for name. I will again. So I'm say is the environmental analyst. So before we went on the break, we talked about flash flooding, southern flood. We also talked about why flooding seems to be increasing in urban areas right now, and we agreed that it could be because we have more buildings coming up right now and they are not planned. So let's get back to the planning, because we're arguing about that, so the viewers can also enjoy and learn something from it. All right, you did say, what do you think about planning? Is it the planning that is the problem we have basically? Is it the government that is not doing the planning, or we who build that are just going about building what we like without seeking government's permission?
Yeah, you see, it is a multifaceted thing. That is to say, the question you ask, it is a component of all. The government on its own is not doing enough to ensure that there is proper planning within the scope of the state. For example, the Benin City Master Plan serves between 1992 to 2012. There's no that I know of now that there's an existing master plan for Benin City. Benin City itself is an ancient city, you know, and if, for example, a city like Benin don't have a master plan, I don't think it's the fault of the planners. Rather, the policy makers are not helping in doing that. You understand? So I don't think it's the planners. You understand? I think it's the government, and also we as individuals. We as individuals. For example, Obatem in his book suggested that, he's an architect, I believe he will subscribe to this, suggested that from your building line to your property line, you should observe 4.5 meters. That is 15 feet. The question is, how many persons observe all this? So people build anyhow, and the government seems not to be doing anything. Government already have a mechanism to carry out all this, but they are not funding this mechanism. For example, we have, I think, in the planning authority today in the state is a Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development. But I think that these persons are handicapped in the course of carrying out their job. They are handicapped because there's no manpower. There's no apparatus that are supposed to be used in the course of their job. So they cannot do otherwise. So I don't think it's the planners or the people that are saddled with the responsibility, but the people, the policy makers, they need to do more. Employ workers, for example, give the necessary incentives, vehicle, and all those things. If you go to, for example, you go to this ministry I'm talking about, for example, or other ministries, you agree with me that they don't have the necessary apparatus to carry out their job. So I think the policy makers must do the needful. And again, the policy makers are the people that will tell the individuals or the citizens what to do as regards how things will be done in an orderly manner. Thank you.
Okay, you've been abroad, you've stayed abroad, you've been here, and maybe you would help us bring our minds to how urban planning should be like at this time. I mean, Nigeria was so old, we're not babies anymore. What we should be expecting or experiencing from government or the people, because he's even saying it's 50-50, not necessarily government's issues right now. I don't know if government is doing enough though. Well, so let's just get to you.
Well, the factors that are mitigating against us now are age-long if you look at what is going on. For instance, when you go around what you refer to as the old GROA, the government reserve areas, you want to be talking of Boundary Road, Eyama, maybe a Ahion or Bioweka, all of those places, you find something very interesting. There are no drains on any of those routes. Even the road leading to Government House, there are no drains. Even the golf course road, there are no drains. So you start to wonder, if you live in the tropics, we've always been in the tropics, this is the tropics, this is where it rains like the most, we know. So you are wondering, like, since independence, no one ever took this into cognizance that there will be a time where, as a result of urbanization, there's going to be increase in human activities. And if we don't start planning from the very beginning, that upon increase in population, where, especially a population that, with all due respect, in terms of waste, refuse disposal, we are not disciplined at all compared to what obtains in other climes. It's corn season now, so it's very convenient to just toss all of those corn crops back anywhere, and most of them are going to end up in the drains, clogging up the drains, and at the end of the day, everyone suffers for it.
It's actually like a law in Africa that you sell corn close to the gutter. They're always near the gutter.
So then you look at, for instance, when you talk about the little girl that got sucked into the drain, may her soul rest in peace. It was as a result of lack of synergy at that time. There was this conflict between the federal and the state government. The federal government was doing the upper end of the road, and the state government was doing the service lanes. Ideally, one company should have done both. Brought out his own plan. What the plan for the road plan? That what's your idea? But what would I have there is that the federal government had done theirs without consideration for the service lanes. Then the service lane had to be appended to it, and as a result, those ones were created in such a way that there was no way to cover the drains, because we also have an interesting way of road construction here that is putting a lot of houses in Benin into serious problems. What I've noticed in Benin City, I don't know how that happens, but it's been happening, and over time, it's going to cause serious havoc, environmental-wise and flooding-wise. Each time there's road construction in Benin, the tendency is the road goes higher than it was before. And as a result, if you go right out of your gate now on this new Lagos road, you are going to find out that those houses that were built on 20, 30 years ago, they seem to be going under because the road is getting higher. If they were to do another reconstruction now, they are going to recoat and take higher. I'm wondering, and what I must find is level. And it happens across all streets in Benin. It seems the houses are going, they are going lower and the roads are getting higher. And once the rain drops, they all just find their level into the adjoining houses and streets. And so that also causes flooding. Then you need to look at first, what is the prevailing soil texture that we have in Benin? Is it even taking into cognizance? Is anyone thinking of the water retention capacity of our soils? And as a result, what's next? Then the rains always catch us unawares. Why is that? Because there is no reportage, or there is under-reportage, or there is incompetent reportage of weather forecasts. We've had, if you ask me, we've had close to category 1 and 2 hurricanes in the city, in the states. We've had severe flooding with little or no warning. Usually I'm going to hear from the National Meteorological Center in Abuja. No, that's not specific enough. Every city should have a weather forecast, daily and hourly weather forecast. As we sit here, you already have cities that have 1 week weather forecast ahead for their citizens to plan their ceremonies, to plan what they are even wearing at home, how they prepare for the day, because they just know it's going to rain. And how is the rain going to be? What form of rain is coming? How do you prepare? Sometimes if you do, then I think also we need to speak to ourselves as a community. If you live in a place where the government has done its best to provide drains, everyone knows at this moment the government is seriously constrained. There's no funding as much as it used to be. You can do that little bit by organizing yourselves during the environmental sanitation day and just desilt your drains. It's for your own good. If you have your street, as for instance, You have the Housing Owners Association in the United States, for it. Every neighborhood have such association. It's not even for the government. These are landlords, like landlords association. And when you don't clear your loans, like every 2 weeks, it becomes overgrown. You are going to get a query from them. And if you don't clear again, they are going to fine you. And if you don't, they are taking you to court. And some people have lost their homes through those processes because they are going to cause you to pay for the legal services that were the legal fees that was used for that case. The reason is they are saying, okay, you came to build or buy your home in this neighborhood because it was clean and decent. So why are you having overgrown lawn? Why are you devaluing our houses? Because your own is unkept. Therefore, collectively, they are going to take on you. So I also expect some responsibility from our, landlords and people, community leaders. They should be up and doing. They should, like, you go to some, hitherto when we have community chairmen, you are going to go to some communities where they have so many cars littered in the chairman's house, but the road to the community is even impassable. I am wondering, all of these cars is gone, where is he driving them through? And these cars were gotten at the expense of the community. But in the same vein, you are not investing some of the proceeds of the land sales that you've made to even provide, drains or outlets for flood that have gathered on the road. Instead, they just go through it. We must complement government effort, especially when we see the constraints of government financially. We must.
Okay. Make me wonder if we'll decide to desilt our drain and then we pack all the sand out of the drain and it's left at the roadside, who's going to pack it for us? Does government even help in that matter? And maybe we'll all get wheelbarrows and begin to push the sand from the drains. Anyway, we're talking about people having a lot of issues to deal with as a result of flooding, especially flash floods. But we're just going to have a quick report right now so that you understand that people are going through issues right now. And I'm not talking about malaria because the mosquito is breeding in the water that is stagnant there. No, I'm talking about people being sucked from their homes because of flooding issues. And this year, we've recorded more of that report than any other year in Benin. Let's have that report quickly.
Affected residents of Erediawa Street off Sapele Road, Benin City, expressing anger over their plight. Several buildings in the area were submerged, while others are under threat. Angered by the situation, some residents took to the street in protest, preventing motorists and other road users. They called for government's intervention, saying that they have no place to lay their heads.
My house, water carrier, and I come rent house again, house where I go rent. Oh, this is not making it total. All my property are flooded. Now even yesterday, about 3 days ago, my children, they come, bring a bag of rice for me. They bring small money. The money they bring now, which is 28,000, I cannot take that money now. I cannot find this. By television, everything, all is flooded.
When they embark on the construction of this road, there were a lot of problems. We told them the alternative, we will send an SOS to the governor that the water should be pushed to the moat, and they agreed that they were going to push the water to the moat. Ever since then, the reverse is the case.
Since morning I started now with day. I think I can see everywhere now. Snow full everywhere, water full everywhere. So nothing we carry come out for us. Now this clothes when I start for body, so now be the clothes when it there with me. So
when the road construction company came, they directed the water right away from Upper Sopomba to this place. All the pretense that they are taking the water to the moat. Okay, now they get here, they dump the whole water here. They did not go to the moat. The moat now is empty. Now we are deserted. No home. We are happy to retrieve our children, that our children is alive. You can see that nobody can enter the house there.
Erediawa Road was recently reconstructed to serve as a link road between Sapele Road and Upper Sopomba Road. At the time of this report, officials of Etsopadek, accused of not following agreed model for the project, could not be reached. A staff of the organization who preferred anonymity told the news crew that no senior officer was on hand to speak to the press on the matter. Pius Nsogo reporting.
All right, now you could be a landlord today and you're celebrating the fact that you have a home. You might not be a landlord tomorrow because if flooding issues aren't addressed, you might just be one of those unfortunate people. If you stay around where I live in right now, around Igosa Housing Estate, you know that we're dealing heavily with gully. So you could find a house today and by tomorrow morning when you're driving past, that house has fallen into that gully. It's been on the news since January and nothing has been done. But we're still going to keep talking about it. Let's not even go into Igosa Housing Gully. It's a big matter for another day. But now, how do we ensure that people who have struggled with this economic hardship, they've struggled so hard to now get money to buy land so they can build? And we don't want a situation where they finally built the house and thinking that they are now landlords, they will become tenants tomorrow. In fact, maybe they will be tenants without clothes on their back because they were not expecting the flood and it just comes like that. So how do you know what area you should get? I'm going to direct this question to both of you. How would you advise people watching us right now if they want to buy land so they'll know this area you're buying this land? In another 10 years, you might not pass this place if government does nothing to fix the flood issue. How do we know flood-prone areas so that we can avoid acquiring lands in those places?
Okay. First of all, I want to say my sympathy to those that lost their residence as a result of the flash flood that occurred the other time. But you see, like I said, the whole thing is still boiled down on the fact that the policy makers. I want to use this medium to thank the present governor under the present administration, under the tutelage of Nogorase Obaseki Godwin, for making sure that land speculators are dislodged from their activities. What you saw now is as a result of issue of land speculators. A situation whereby EDPA or ministries that are saddled with responsibility as related to land, their duties were given to the CDA. This is what you see. You understand? So I will encourage the government or advise the government rather to make sure that the people that have been given the opportunity to take charge of lands in their various community. Because if we are to go by the Land Use Act of 1978, the government is supposed to hold the land in trust for the people. But now that the CDA or the land speculators have been dislodged, I will advise that the government should make sure that people that are being given the power to sell land or whatever, they should make sure that they have a layout plan. There's what called layout plan. If you have a layout plan, for example, things like this can easily be identified because a layout plan comprises, people that are going to do this layout plan comprises of many professions like surveyors, the town planners, the city engineers, and architects. You understand? They are the people that will be involved in carrying out this layout plan. And once this layout plan is done, you can easily identify places that are prone to erosion, places that are prone or floodplain areas. You understand? It can easily be identified. It might not be occurring now because of the fact that there are vegetation covering. But once, like I said from the insertion, once there are more houses, water must find its level. You understand? Water must find its level. So these people, they did not foresee this, what they are saying now. So if there is a layout, you can easily identify areas that are good for residential, areas that are good for commercial, areas that are good for recreational, areas that are also good for other purposes. You understand? But a situation where you garbage in, you expect to garbage out. Those CDS or CDA rather, they sell all lands, even without proposing for maybe markets and all of that. They just sell everything. You understand? So as such, what you see slums all over, mushroom development occurs. Then you see urban blight all over the places. So if the government can give a room for a layout that comprises of those people that are involved in the built environment, I think we will not experience what we are seeing now. And implementation is another big thing. Because in Nigeria, what we know how to do best is policy. We make good policies. We make good policies, but in the course of implementation, there's always a big problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come to you now.
Well, if you are going to be, or if you are a prospective landlord, and of course, the way it is in this part of the world, it seems we have reversed the trend in other civilized climes in terms of how our cities are generated. Usually, you are going to have in other climes where we borrowed urbanization from. Usually, you have all of the things you need to be in place, like your drains, like your sewage disposal pipes, your gas pipes, your electricity. Everything would have been provided for before a land is sold to you, and the road is already constructed. You are not going to have a situation where a gentleman takes you into a bush in the middle of nowhere and point to some plot of land and you just buy. Sometimes because it's not even motorable, you don't even need to go to the town planning place, especially if you want to build the popular 4 flats, 2 flats, or face me, I face you. You just just tell him, no, this is the size I want for my rooms, just put 10 here, put 1 person in the middle. And he says, okay, fine, and they just start building, and they just build, and sometimes not to specification. And in other parts of the world, there are a lot of things we need to do, because as we are growing as a nation, if we have to start coming back to fix the things we didn't do right, the monies that we say we do not even have now, we have lesser value at the time. The reason is, for instance, it is compulsory in other climes that homes are insured against natural disasters like this. Because it blows one's mind to imagine that maybe all throughout your working time you were able to put some funds together and you did come up and build a house. This is my home for my family, and so when I retire I have a place to stay. Then you wake up again from nowhere, maybe when you're even retired now, and you have to be a late tenant or go and squat with someone else. That can facilitate the death of many. Back to our government, from what I saw now, we need to get more involved in housing. We need to set the pace. Now we have foundation issues in the Benin City metropolis, and we usually in building, when you have foundation issues, only one thing can happen. To address a dysfunctional or a defective foundation, you probably have to take that building down again. But since that is not possible, we have to rapidly create new modern layouts so that those ones will serve as direction for people who are building. As people migrate in that direction, the value of the properties in the old areas will go down. Government probably can buy up over time and reorganize the city. But if we continue like this, it's going to be a long shot, for us to attain urbanization. And you also have to imagine, if our culture it's not even a culture, because when I was born, people were not buried in homes. All of a sudden, they've turned almost every home in Benin to a cemetery, which is very sad, which this impairs urbanization on its own. And sometimes some are built on the right of way, because these emotions and emotional sentiments attached to it, it's difficult sometimes to move all of these things. That's why tomorrow I must salute, the courage of Comrade Adams Oshomole. When he came, he insisted on the right of way. He brought out the city master plan and insisted that no matter whose house was God, no matter whose property was involved, if your house was on the right of way, it must give way for government to, do what it had to do. And that's somehow, brought about a semblance of a modern city that we now see, that have, sidewalks, covered drains, and all of that, especially on most of the roads leading out of Ring Road, And so therefore we should build more. We have the 1,800 housing estate coming out now, but we have to do many more like that, and hopefully those can form the new Benin City that we all can now look at to build other areas. But for now, that everyone just builds what they like, there's no asymmetry, there's no approval, there's no, you don't even test your soil to know the weight of building that can be placed on that particular soil. You just put whatever you like on it, and sometimes it starts sinking. That's another issue. So government needs to do a holistic planning for the city in terms of how now maybe complete the Benin City Water Storm project. I'm sure when that is completed, it will help a great deal to evacuate some of these floods. And then we'll look at other cities that are not covered, because that was the first phase. Many other areas in Benin City are not covered. So maybe we can look around and see how we can evacuate some of these floods, because it's very disheartening to see, citizens, go through this kind of pains.
All right, before we go, last questions for both of you so that we can leave here quickly. What would you say to people who are already living in places where year in, year out, they're having flood issues? What is your advice to them?
Okay, for those who are living in an environment that year in, year out, especially in this period of the year, they are having flooding issues. We urge them to make sure that if they can look for other places, or other place to get a land, if they have the resources, they should, because I made mention of the master plan earlier, because a master plan is a comprehensive document which the government is supposed to have for the development of, for the growth and development of a city. If that is not available, I tell you this, I think we are still going to be having more of these in the nearest future, because urbanization will keep on. In as much as the population is increasing, it will keep on and on.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. What would you say to that?
Well, from a layman's point of view, if you are building and you want to buy a plot of land, when you get to that locality, try to look for the highest point in the vicinity you are buying your plot. See if you can stand on it and look all around you. And see to it that where you are buying from is not in a slopey area. Because if it's sloping, the flood is coming your way, definitely. Just use that as a layman. And if you find yourself looking downwards towards where you've been told to come and buy a plot of land, you better run till help comes. So that's just a layman way to go about it, because not everyone will have the modern idea of taking the equipment there to go and measure the gradients of the road to ascertain if you are on a hilly place or a slopey area. But if you look, from with common sense, you can tell if you are on the hill or you are down the slope, and you should take a cue from there and make sure you never buy on a slope or on an area that is slopey.
Okay, I'm going to say thank you to both of my guests today for doing justice to this topic. I know we could stay here and even have much more things to talk about, but we have to leave right now. And for all those who have lost their houses and properties this raining season, my heartfelt sympathy to you. I feel what you feel, because I can see the gully near my house, so I kind of know how you feel right now, the fear, the tension, and all of those. But I also want to advise you that because you had flood issues this year, and then December is going to come and everywhere is going to be dry, you won't prepare for next year. No, don't do that. You have to prepare for next year, because government might not just care to remove the flood from you. So next year it might even be bigger. Before you begin to experience big flooding issues by this time next year, you should have made plans to pack all your properties and run. Don't worry, just squat for a while. Eventually, things will get better. I am sure you've had fun today. Flooding is no joke. People are learning to raise their streets so that all the water comes to the major roads, and then the major roads are getting bad, and we're having lots of protests. Well, it still boils down to general work. Government needs to sit up. Ministries that have been put in charge of monitoring all of these housing activities need to buckle up and stop looking for how to extort people to buy cars and live large. And you that you're building, do not say you just want to build. Do proper investigation, ask the right questions, go online and get information. Then you know what to ask and who to ask your questions before you just go about building. I see a better Benin City. I see a better Nigeria. We're nearly 200 million. Stop giving birth to too many children too. All right, I'll go now before someone shoots me from their house. All right, have fun and watch this program again on YouTube. From tomorrow, it will be on YouTube. Just type Flipside and you find this edition and watch it on Gold TV channel 107 tonight. Should I say early hours of the morning at 4 a.m. It will be broadcast live again tomorrow morning on YouTube. I'm Daisy Vice. Everyone, thank you so much and bye-bye.